I don't feel like I'm being let off super scot-free. In fact, I feel like Robbie, my best friend and mentor, wants to take me out back and shoot me in the head for most of this shift.
Going to start with congratulations on the nomination because so well deserved. You were so good in season two.
Oh, thank you.
When the first season shift began, it feels like Langdon couldn't be more confident. That changes during the shift once everything comes out. But then for the second seasons, he's coming in recovery, almost like a fish out of water, even though he's in a familiar place because he knows the work environment. So what was your approach to playing this Langdon who has to find his footing in his own workplace?
Yeah, no, I was really excited about the opportunity that 10 months away would present. Because you meet somebody in season one that, like you said, is very confident and you think you know who this person is. And then about halfway through season one, you realize that this facade that you've met in Langdon is being propped up by drugs and may not be uh, as truthful as you may have assumed. And then also what 10 months away gave me an opportunity to sort of meditate on is like, what of this person that you met in season one, what of that is dispositional and what of that is just a product of circumstance? And you see season one Langdon, who basically lives in the pit. He's a senior resident, so he probably spends 60, 70 hours a week in this workplace. And this workplace has a rhythm to it, it has a pace to it. And he's been on that hamster wheel nonstop for four years. And what does it look like when somebody steps off of that hamster wheel for 10 months and gets clean, gets off of drugs, and is also just out of this environment that he has sort of fashioned himself into being the kind of thing that he needs to be in order to survive this environment. So what happens when you decontextualize that person from this space, and especially somebody that struggles with addiction, people that struggle with addiction, um, can really struggle with having a core sense of self. And so I think he's probably a water sign, that sort of adapts to whatever shape the container is around him. And so he is adapted to this space. And you get to see him not having been shaped by this space for a while.
And it's similar when it comes to the Langdon and Robbie dynamic, because beginning of the first season, Langdon is like, we're friends. But then by the end of the first season, clearly not. But he comes into the second season knowing that that's not the case. And he's seeing just how much Robbie does not want him there. It is very clear Robbie does not keep that a secret. Did Langdon think it would take until after the shift was over for them to talk, though?
No, I mean, I don't think so. I think he comes in the door right at the beginning, knowing that he has to make amends and knowing that some bridges need to be built and that he has a lot to apologize for. And I think he comes in with the hope of doing that and taking ownership over his part, and so that they can reestablish this relationship and move on. And that's not what happens. Um, and then I think uh, also Langdon is aware. You have that scene with Dana in the break room where he comes in, he basically tries to make amends to her, and she says, "Look, man, uh, I'm not here for your spiritual journey. I need you to pick up patience. I need you to do your job," which sort of becomes the task of the day. And he sort of realizes over the day that nobody is just here. He is maybe not the main character. Nobody is here for his healing journey. He is just a worker among workers, and that is what everybody needs him to do.
Speaking of when Robbie and Langdon do talk, because I want to take a close look at that conversation, which was so good. Because, like, in general, this is a relationship that cannot be fixed in 15 hours. It can't be fixed in probably like 15 days, 15 weeks. That's something that's going to take a long time. But it feels like that talk becomes what it does with Langdon calling out Robbie, telling him he needs help, like using his work in recovery and acknowledge and like talking about what he's seen in Robbie that day, because it takes as long as it does for them to get to it, right? So like, would Langdon have said what he did to Robbie earlier in the shift, or did it need to get to that point for him to call him out like he did?
No, yeah, I think it took the shift. I think it took the shift for Langdon to realize that Robbie is not doing okay. And I think, like many, like when you have a mentor figure, whenever you're a kid growing up with your parents, you don't really see your parents as people with their own problems and their own things that they need to work through. They are just dad and mom, and they are just there to sort of facilitate your growth process. And I think maybe unconsciously that is the box that Langdon put Robbie in. Of Robbie is here to be my mentor and to be my friend. And I think it took the shift for him to come back in and realize, oh wait, no, this is a whole person that is not just an accessory to my healing, but it is struggling himself, and I can actually be of use to him, which I think is not something he came in the door aware of or ready to do at the beginning of the shift.
Talk about filming that scene with Noah in the finale.
It was it was great. It was great. It was we did it a number of ways, and John Wells was directing that episode, and um, I mean Noah's such a great scene partner, and it's such a difficult scene because it is how do you intervention someone who doesn't want to be interventioned? How do you tell somebody to get help that doesn't want to get help? Um, that can be really hard to break through to someone, and I think I didn't want to, I didn't want to create a Langdon that went off to rehab and came back perfect and healed, and you see in that scene like there is still some bitterness there. There's still some animosity there. And also, um, knowing what Robbie responds to. Robbie is the kind of person uh, a rub on the back might feel like an assault to Robbie. He is somebody that needs, to a certain degree, needs a straight shot in response to conflict, and maybe that is the only way to get through to somebody like that. And I know plenty of people like that. And so we geared it up and geared it down as far as how hot that got. But I'm really happy with how it came out, and it's pretty perfect that Robbie comes out of that scene. He goes right into opening up to Baby Jane Doe.
The other conversation that Langdon needed to have this shift was the one with Santos. First of all, which had he been dreading more, the one with Robbie or the one with Santos?
I think probably came in with the assumption that he was the bad guy with Robbie, and with the assumption that he could build a bridge there. I think the feelings with Santos are obviously probably a lot more complicated. Like this person, as right as she was, and I do think at the end of the day, Santos may have saved Langdon's life by doing what she did, but that is hard to see it that way whenever my entire life plan got really derailed, and I think there's a lot of complicated feelings. I think the better half of Langdon is sitting there trying to own his part in things, and the other half of him is being like, "Man, you ruined my freaking life." And so in trying to find a way where both of these things can be true, and it was really important to Scott and John, I think, in writing of the season. I think they're right in understanding that uh, a relationship like that is not going to be righted in one shift, in one day. This is that's a lot to overcome, and we're not going to get to the bottom of it in one day at the pit. But that was the first attempt with Santos to try to get things at least in a workable state.
Yeah, I was going to say, because when it comes to that conversation, like in episode 11, he apologizes, but he is very much focused on himself, whereas she's more so looking at the big picture. That's what stands out, I feel like, in that conversation between Langdon and Santos in
Yeah, and
episode
I think
11.
And I think to Langdon, it's a tough one to swallow because she is not uh, aware of all of the flack that Langdon has taken. And so whenever she comes to him, be like, "You're still the golden boy. Everybody lets you off scot free." And I'm like, I don't feel like I'm being let off super scot free. In fact, I feel like Robbie, my best friend and mentor, wants to take me out back and shoot me in the head for most of this shift. So I don't feel that way, but I understand how you would feel that way. But I promise you that is not my experience. And I've been eating all day. And so I think that is a tough one to swallow. But again, everybody is just sort of a product of their what information they are privy to, and she is not privy to what I'm navigating elsewhere.
And also, it's just like they both have very strong personalities. So it's not like they were really, I think they would have clashed on things no matter what happened. Even if you took away the drugs in season one and the addiction and everything, I think they still would have ended up clashing in some ways on the job at some point too.
Yeah, I think they're. I mean, I think they're very similar in that way. I think they're both very front-footed. They both want to win. They both want to go out there and be the best. And it's great. It's like a great. I think they would be if they were on a sports team. They'd be great teammates. But yeah, and I also think she comes in as an intern, season one, first day, and is really she wants the ball. She wants to take the shot. She wants to sort of get out over her skis a little bit, which I think is probably very similar to how Langdon came into this space. But I think Langdon is also like, I think he understands. You talk about in that scene with Santos how she sees the bigger picture. I think Langdon also, over the course of his residency, has seen the bigger picture of the importance of staying in your lane in order for this entire machine, which is the pit, to function properly. Everybody has to know their role. And I know that my role is answering to Robbie, and I know my role is answering to Dana. And I know that if people start bypassing sort of chain of command, really bad things can happen. And these are all life and death situations that we can't just go rogue on. And I think that is something that Langdon believes in and wants to defend. And I think also becomes a bit of a mask for his own ego.
Why is it that Langdon can be the person he is around King? Because he is different with her than anyone else, but she's also different towards him than anyone else is.
Yeah, well, I think Mel, I think Dr. King is somebody that does see the whole machine. She sees how it all fits together, and she's new in here, and I think she comes in the door with the right mindset. And I also think that she feels a bit misfit in this place. And I think Langdon, I think most people that struggle with addiction or masking of any kind, I think there is a sense of chronic apartness. Like you just feel sort of fatally unique or fatally different. And I think that is something that a lot of addicts talk about. And I think that is something that he sees reflected in Mel. She thinks a little bit different, moves a little bit different, and doesn't feel entirely like the other kids. And I think that is something that Langdon also feels, and I think feels a kindred spirit in that.
Langdon gets a win with that patient and the close reduction. How much had he needed that?
I think he needed that. I think he needed that for sure. I think his confidence has been very very much shaken, and I think this place requires a senior resident to be confident and to make confident calls. And I don't think he would have been able to make a call like that had he not been pushed. And I think Robbie pushes him hard and pushes him out of his comfort zone. And I think Robbie hits him with a straight shot, says, "Wake up, doctor up, and get over yourself." And I think that is the sink or swim moment that Langdon needed to sort of get back in the game. And I think it is. given back to him in that final scene with Robbie when Langdon hits him with the straight shot. And so I think it's a mentor and a mentee who really know how what each other needs, whether they want to admit it or not.
What surprised you the most about Langdon in season two?
Uh, he's a big fan of historical reenactments. I didn't see that one coming, but I love it. I love it.
Yeah, and like just like having nice like small moments like that. Like that's what I like about the Piz. You do get small moments like that, but like they land. That you get to learn little things about these characters, but they don't have time to really delve into much. And that's just the nature of the show because of the real-time aspect.
Yeah, it's a really fun way to build a character because you just get little nuggets here and there. And over time, these things add up to a complete and multi-dimensional person, which is really cool. Like it would be really easy to come in and play sort of like the archetype of sort of like edgy addict, doctor, sort of hothead sort of guy. But this guy can also be a complete dork and can also be, really hyperactive and nerdy and can also be sad and can also be angry and can be all of these things. And you build out their personality just sort of like glimpse by glimpse because 90% of what we do in the pit is showing up for patients and being what that patient needs us to be, which is often to be boundaried and to be a professional and to be like, this is actually not about me, this is about you. And so the little glimpses into who these doctors are are sparse but powerful.
Is there a scene from season two that you were especially satisfied with, whether it was after filming or after you saw the final product?
Um, I really enjoyed that scene with Whitaker in the break room where all of a sudden, uh, you know, he maybe like he is confronted with the assumptions that he's made about his relationship with Whitaker and did not realize that he was being demeaning to Whitaker or big dogging Whitaker or something like that. He just thought he was, being nice. But there was sort of a downhill sort of relationship that he had there that Whitaker confronts him on. And I think in the course of that, he also realizes like, oh, Whitaker is now assuming this mantle of sort of Robbie's favorite. And that is a mantle that I once wore. Uh, and there's a passing of the torch there. And there's also like a realization that like Whitaker gets pretty upset and seems to be fairly dysregulated in that scene. And I know whenever I was wearing that mantle, I was pretty dysregulated and I was pretty not okay. And I think that was a really interesting and unexpected scene. I was stoked how that went.
So earlier I brought up like Langdon confidence in season one, not so much in season two. How is he doing in season three's shift?
I'm really excited. I'm really excited. I can't say anything, but we are about to begin episode 5 of 15 in season 3, and so far, it's going really well. The scripts are really good, and we are in a really good flow. I think everybody's going to be really happy.
Can you say like is he somewhere between season one and season two Langdon, or is it completely different Langdon?
No, he's right after season 2, right before season 4.
I like that. When you were looking at season three before you knew anything about it, which relationship were you most excited to explore for Langdon?
Um, yeah, I think all of these dynamics have become so multi-directional. There's a tension in each one of these dynamics. I think the dynamic that Langdon and Robbie have is obviously incredibly rich, and there's a lot more to unpack there, which we're getting into. And I think, the relationship with Dana, the relationship with Mel, the relationship with Santos, I think this relationship with Whitaker, we also have the relationship with Ali Shimmy. I think what is the pit after having uh, Robbie is away and Ali Shimmy has been steering the ship for the last few months. And what is that like? What does this place feel like under different leadership? And I think that's a really interesting dynamic. We have some new med students that I think are really great, and I think people are going to be really into. Um, I really want more for Langdon and McKay. I love McKay so much, and I love Fiona Dourif so much. And I think McKay is somebody that has a lot to offer Langdon. She's in recovery as well, and she's a little bit further down that road. And I think there's a shared experience between Langdon and McKay that I would love to get into.
Yeah, I love those moments in season two because it's just like little surprising moments. And like, even for Langdon, like he seemed taken aback that she was sharing with him in those moments.
Yeah,
Um,
she's so good. She's so good.
you brought up Al Hashimi because when she overheard that conversation, because like she wasn't really privy to what was going on in season two. And then when she became privy and we saw how that changed her reaction and how she looked at Langdon, that was interesting to see also in season two. So can you say, like, does that come up? Because it didn't come up as much as it could have, because she then went through her own stuff at the end of season two. So, but with this time that has passed, is that something that's addressed, or is that kind of just like we're looking at their on-screen dynamic and whether it's changed it?
I guess we'll just have to tune in and find out.
What else were you looking forward to? Like when you were looking ahead to season three, were there any types of like cases, like medical cases that you really wanted to do with for Langdon? After, I mean, because once you do that closed reduction, that was shocking. So like, were you looking to do more of like big things like that going ahead, or were you looking? But then we also saw him in triage and dealing with the smaller things in season two.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really interesting. Like in season one, you have I pretty much lived in the trauma rooms. I was like in all sort of like the fast paced, high octane trauma situations, which was really fun. And I think where Langdon feels at home is moving fast. And then in season two, I get benched and I'm out in triage for a long time, and I'm sort of hesitant to get back into the trauma rooms really. And I'm just moving at a different tempo rhythm. But I think in season three, I'm now back in the pit, and I've been back in the pit, and I've sort of found my feet a little bit, and so I'm back in the fun stuff.
Did it feel like he kind of needed that stuff from season two to be ready to get back into that for season three?
For sure, for sure. And I think um realistically, even if there hadn't been the rehab aspect of 10 months away, I think if you took any regular person uh after having been on a 10-month sabbatical and brought them back into a life and death scenario one after the other, there would be pause for anybody. And it it takes a real fortitude to jump into those sort of situations. And I think realistically, yeah, it would take anybody a shift to get their flow back. And I think definitely having had his belief in himself uh, really eroded through the whole rehab process. I think, yeah, that is definitely a shift of reflection that needed to happen.
Brought up and you were surprised by the historical reenactment that we learned in season two. Can you say if we learn anything like that from him in season three, like some little fun fact?
We do. We do. We are working on an episode right now where I get a fun new nugget, but you'll just have to wait and see.